Hello there, Darksiders. I hope everyone's doing well today. So, we're going to take a moment and talk about what's been going on with the Star Wars books and comics and how Disney and Lucasfilm is actively changing the past to justify the future. So, the sequel trilogy, it's been met with a lot of meh reception, you could say. It's been Lord, it's been a mess. It truly has been a mess. I mean, honestly, instead of telling us a continuation story or a brand new story, they just reset the galaxy to a point where we've already seen it, and not much in the form of originality has really been used. But for the past couple years now, as many of y'all know, Star Wars has been releasing comics under the Marvel name. They've been releasing more and more stories, more and more this, more and more that. And the thing is, they're kind of dull, honestly. I mean, they're kind of dull. Now, ever since Star Wars was created by George Lucas, I mean, they've had that long to, write tons and tons of stories and lore and everything else. I mean, maybe it could be that we're just bored with the new stuff, or maybe too many people just understood the deep lore of what happened and they're just not willing to put in the effort to know what the Disney canon is. I don't know. I really don't know. But it's definitely a problem that's been going on for a while. But the issue is now with more recent comics and books, they've been talking about things that happened in the sequel trilogy. And in my opinion, it's like they're doing these stories on purpose to justify, oh yeah, you see, this was prophesized or this happened in the past and that's why it's happening in the sequel trilogy. Like in the book with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, I think it's Master and Apprentice, there is a whole chapter dedicated to Jedi prophecies, and one of them talks about how a child born in darkness will give birth to darkness, of which people were theorizing that that's talking about Leia, how Leia was born during, the Jedi Purge, which was the darkest time in the galaxy. She eventually gave birth to the darkest being of their time, being Kylo Ren, which is not really accurate when it comes to the villain meter, but okay, whatever. There's also been another comic called Age of Rebellion that told a short story of Luke where it was between 5 and 6. Apparently, the Emperor got so dissatisfied with Vader that he said, "You can't stop young Skywalker. I'ma do it." So Palpatine sits there and he meditates and gives Luke a Force vision. Now, Luke was on a mission. They were trying to secure gas and such for the rebellion before the assault on the second Death Star. But anyway, Palpatine gave Luke a Force vision that, everybody died around him. And he was like, oh, if they only listened to me, they'd be alive. Ah, screw the Jedi, screw the rebellion, screw my friends and family. Basically, that was a little melodramatic. But basically, in a nutshell, that's what happened. Luke went to a random planet, sunk his X-Wing, ignited his lightsaber one last time, tossed it aside, tossed aside his rebel pilot helmet, and he exiled himself because reasons. Well, the reasons was because no one in the rebellion listened to him, and a lot of people died, apparently. But Luke was woken up at the last moment from his vision. So, now people are like, oh, see, it's Palpatine's fault Luke exiled himself because he seeded the idea in his mind young ago, or, long ago when he was younger, when it's just like, no, that's not how that works, but okay. And then in another book that's coming out, I forget the full title, but it's like from a certain point of view of different people, and one of them talks about Obi-Wan when he was given his final moments before he was slain by Vader and became one with the Force. And in that book, Obi-Wan had a vision, and in the vision, it was like, oh yeah, Luke defeats the Emperor and Vader, and he brings balance back to the Force and returns the Jedi. Oh no, the Jedi are dead again, and now there's this even darker and more evil being in the galaxy. This isn't the future Yoda promised. One that that builds so many questions, and it honestly causes more confusion than it does answers. So, Obi-Wan basically had a vision of the fall of the Empire, but the rise of Snoke, Kylo Ren, and the First Order. But I'm sitting here thinking to myself, okay, if Obi-Wan had this vision, once the Empire was defeated, why didn't Obi-Wan tell Luke, oh, hey, by the way, your nephew's gonna go crazy, dark, and insane, and there's this dark being named Snoke that's gonna kill you all? I mean, he could have. He could have. I just don't know. Because, let's face it, Disney has had any any real progressive storytelling for the sequel trilogy in a chokehold, because they don't want anything ruined in the movies. They don't want anything spoiled. But at the same time, that mentality that they're doing is also part of the reason why the sequel trilogy is failing. Because in the movies themselves, they're not really explaining much of anything to us. They're not really explaining how powerful the bad guys are, or how dangerous the bad guys are, or why certain people are so powerful and why certain people are so weak, and blah, 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 blah. And they're not allowing people to write stories to expand the sequel trilogy. So it's like, what's the point? What is the point? I mean, they have been so focused on rewriting the past. They have been so focused on changing Luke, Leia, and Han's stories during the fight of the rebellion, which they can't do too much because, they got to keep in line of the movies until Disney finally decides to do a hard reboot and redoes all the Star Wars from the beginning. It's coming, folks. Maybe a couple years from now, but it's coming. Just you wait. But it's just, instead of giving us retold stories, or stories that, instead of changing the current hero stories, they could have been writing stories about the sequel trilogy to help expand upon its lore. But at the same time, they could have done it wrong, because I don't know what's been going on, but there has been this mentality amongst a lot of entertainment industries lately where it's like, haha, to understand our game or to understand our movie, you have to read this comic, read this book, watch this, watch that. When it's just like, just give it all to us in the movie. Because see, the reality is not everyone's gonna go read the comics. Not everyone's gonna go watch. Well, I mean, you get what I'm saying. Not everyone's gonna read the comics and the books, and not everyone's gonna watch anything. I mean, sorry, folks, I'm getting off topic. The point is that for the past couple years, Disney has been actively changing the story of the original characters. They're even going back into the Republic or the Clone Wars era, which I don't know how much they can do there. But the issue is, in more recent stories, they have purposely been adding things to justify the sequel trilogy. Like, it's like, oh, it's always been there now. This has always been there. It was destined. It was foreseen. It was prophesized to happen. When it's just... They know they messed up, folks. They know they messed up hardcore, alright? Love or like the sequel trilogy, they have messed up. And they know it. Truly. They know it. But it's just, instead of trying to expand upon the sequel trilogy, maybe write stories that people care about, they're just too busy rewriting the past to justify the future. And they're changing a lot of the old Star Wars lore. Now, why is this? Well, I guess Disney wants the sequel trilogy to be Star Wars. I mean, that's what they want. They want the sequel trilogy to be Star Wars, and they kind of want to push everything that came before it away, so it's like, bam, only the sequel trilogy matters. Only what Disney claims matters. And to do that, they have to change what's happened before, change the past, to make it look like this is always going to happen now. Look, y'all can call me a conspiracy theorist. All right, I'll raise my hand and say that, but with just a lot of these stories that's been going on, it's just too much changing. Too much, just, it's pointless stories that we know nothing bad can happen to the heroes because they clearly survive into the sequel trilogy. I mean, I don't even know anymore, folks. I really do not know. I don't know what Lucasfilm's game plan is. I don't know what Disney's game plan is. I mean, that new woman, Michelle, who is J.J. Abrams' left-hand woman, is now in power at Lucasfilms. Whether or not that's good or bad yet, I don't know. Maybe if you're a huge fan of J.J. Abrams, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe you're like, yeah, more J.J. stuff. At the same time, you have to kind of step back and go, do they even know what they're doing? They're so focused on, oh, they completely just hoped that the sequel trilogy with just the Star Wars logo on it would be enough to draw people in, but they have put so much time and energy in rewriting the old stories that maybe if they put that time and energy that they've been spending in the rewriting the old stories, maybe they took that and put it with the sequel trilogy, maybe they would actually have something. But no, they are so focused on rewriting Star Wars from the George Lucas era. They're so focused on rewriting that now they're rewriting it to justify the sequel trilogy because they know they've messed up. Anyway, folks, I'm sorry. I just it blows my mind, and it really makes you wonder what the hell's going on. Folks, thank y'all for watching. I appreciate it.